Have you ever stood in a crowded room and felt utterly alone? Not because no one was speaking, but because something felt absent in the conversation, a depth missing, a spark extinguished, as though the people around you were going through the motions of being human without actually inhabiting the experience. What if that feeling isn't paranoia? What if it's perception picking up on something real, something most people refuse to acknowledge because it's too unsettling to consider? Over a century ago, a woman dared to say it out loud. Her name was Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, mystic, scholar, founder of the Theosophical Society, and the bearer of a message so controversial, so deeply uncomfortable, that even today it's dismissed as fringe philosophy or spiritual fantasy. But her words carried a weight that cannot be ignored. She claimed that not everyone walking this earth possesses a soul, that there are beings outwardly indistinguishable from anyone else, who lack the inner light that defines true consciousness. She called them human shells, bodies that breathe, that speak, that move through the world, but without that silent presence inside that makes existence meaningful. And she wasn't alone in this observation. Long before her, the ancient Gnostics warned of the same phenomenon. Long after her, modern thinkers like David Icke and researchers like Corrado Malanga would revisit this idea from different angles, arriving at disturbingly similar conclusions. So the question must be asked, are we surrounded by beings who only appear human? And if so, how do we recognize them? More importantly, how do we ensure we don't become one? Helena Blavatsky was no ordinary thinker. Born in 1831 in Russia, she spent her life traveling the world in search of hidden knowledge. She studied with spiritual masters in India, explored the mysteries of Egypt, and immersed herself in the esoteric teachings of East and West. In 1875, she founded the Theosophical Society, an organization dedicated to uncovering the universal truths buried beneath religions, philosophies, and ancient traditions. Her most significant work, The Secret Doctrine, published in 1888, is a dense, sprawling text that attempts to map the invisible architecture of existence. And within its pages lies one of her most disturbing insights. The human being is not a singular, unified entity. We are layered, composed of multiple principles, some physical, some energetic, some spiritual. According to Blavatsky, the human constitution consists of 7 distinct layers. The physical body is only the most obvious. Beyond it lies the astral body, the vital energy that animates flesh. Then comes desire, the driving force of emotion and instinct. Above that is the lower mind, what we might call rational thought, logic, the part that calculates and plans. But these lower principles, she argued, do not make someone truly human. Animals possess them. Machines can simulate them. What separates a conscious being from an automaton is the higher triad, the higher mind, the spiritual intuition, and the divine spark, what she called Atma, the fragment of eternal consciousness that connects us to something infinite. And here is where her teaching becomes radical. Not everyone, she said, has activated that higher triad. Not everyone possesses what could be called a soul in the full sense. Some people live their entire lives operating only from the lower principles: instinct, emotion, conditioned thought. They react, they mimic, they repeat patterns. But there is no one home, no silent witness inside experiencing the world, no inner dialogue questioning existence. These are the human shells, and Blavatsky warned that in times of spiritual decline, times like ours, they become the majority. She wrote something alarming in one of her texts. We rub shoulders with soulless men and women at every step of life. Not metaphorically, literally. People who, from the outside, seem perfectly normal, but who lack that mysterious essence that makes consciousness possible. But how does this happen? How does someone lose their soul or never develop one in the first place? According to Blavatsky, the soul is not a birthright. It's a potential. a seed that must be cultivated. And in a world dominated by materialism, by shallow pleasures, by conditioning and repetition, that seed often never takes root. The lower mind becomes so dominant, so entrenched in survival and desire, that the higher principles remain dormant. And if they remain dormant long enough, they atrophy. The connection to the divine spark weakens, flickers, and eventually goes out. What remains is a body that functions, a brain that thinks, but no center of awareness holding it all together. Just reflex, just programming, just the illusion of personhood. And once that connection is severed, something else can move in. This is where the idea becomes even more unsettling. If the higher self is absent, the body becomes an empty vessel. And empty vessels, as ancient traditions have long understood, can be occupied. This is where the Gnostics enter the story. Nearly 2,000 years ago, a group of early Christian mystics developed a radically different understanding of reality. They called themselves Gnostics from the Greek word gnosis, meaning knowledge. Not intellectual knowledge, but direct, experiential understanding of the divine. The Gnostics believed that the material world was not created by the true God, but by a lesser, ignorant deity they called the demiurge. This false god fashioned the physical universe as a prison, a trap designed to keep souls bound to matter, forgetful of their divine origin. And to maintain this prison, the demiurge created servants, shadowy, parasitic entities called archons. The archons, according to Gnostic texts, do not have physical bodies. They operate in the unseen, manipulating human perception, feeding on ignorance, fear, and spiritual blindness. They cannot create. They can only imitate, distort, and control. And their primary method of control is deception, convincing humans that the material world is all there is, that consciousness is an accident, that existence has no deeper meaning. But here's the key insight. Not all humans were equally susceptible to the archons. The Gnostics divided humanity into three categories. First, the pneumatics, those who possessed the divine spark, the inner light that could perceive truth beyond illusion. These were the rare individuals capable of gnosis, of awakening. Second, the psychics, those with a potential soul, an intermediate state. They could evolve toward enlightenment or sink into ignorance, depending on their choices. And third, the Hylics, beings entirely bound to matter. No inner light, no spiritual capacity, automatons in human form, driven purely by instinct and external programming. The Gnostics believed the Hylics were the majority, and they were the easiest prey for the archons. Sound familiar? The Gnostic Hylics and Blavatsky's human shells are describing the same phenomenon. Beings who walk, talk, and interact, but who are fundamentally asleep. And in their sleep, they can be manipulated, controlled, used. Fast forward to the present day. A British author named David Icke has spent decades exploring the idea of hidden control systems. And though his theories are often dismissed as conspiracy, the core of his message echoes the Gnostics and Blavatsky with eerie precision. Icke speaks of interdimensional entities, what he calls reptilians or archons, that manipulate humanity through soulless leaders. Politicians, corporate executives, media figures who appear human but are, in his view, puppets. Empty vessels controlled by forces operating beyond normal perception. Whether one takes this literally or metaphorically, the pattern is consistent. There are beings in positions of power who seem disconnected from empathy, from conscience, from any sense of shared humanity. They make decisions that harm millions without hesitation. They lie with ease. They manipulate without remorse. And when you look into their eyes, something feels absent. Icke argues that these individuals are either born without souls or have lost them through corruption, making them ideal hosts for parasitic intelligences. And once controlled, they serve an agenda that keeps the rest of humanity trapped in ignorance, fear, and division. This is not a new idea. It's the Gnostic warning, updated for a modern context. The Archons are still here. The Hylics are still among us. The methods have changed, but the game remains the same. So how do you recognize them? How do you tell the difference between someone who is genuinely conscious and someone who is merely performing consciousness? Blavatsky gave clues. The soulless, she said, operate mechanically. Their thoughts are borrowed. Their emotions are shallow, reactive, performative. They don't create, they imitate. They don't question, they repeat. They follow trends, adopt popular opinions, and shift their identity based on external validation. Watch how they speak. Do they ever pause, reflect, admit uncertainty? Or do they always have an answer? Always confident? Always certain? True consciousness carries doubt. It wrestles with complexity. It holds space for mystery. The soulless do not. They parrot whatever authority tells them, whatever feels safe, whatever keeps them accepted. Corrado Malanga, an Italian researcher who has spent years studying consciousness and non-human interference, offers another lens. According to Malanga, those with souls are inherently creative. They resist rigid structures. They don't seek power for its own sake. They question authority. They walk their own path, even if it's lonely. Those without souls, on the other hand, cling to rules, hierarchies, systems. They need external structures to define them because there's no internal compass. They chase status, wealth, control, not because they truly desire these things, but because they don't know what else to do. They are, in Malanga's words, perfect hosts for parasitic entities because they have no inner anchor to resist influence. He also notes something chilling. The soulless are often drawn to power. They rise in politics, in corporations, in institutions because they lack the moral friction that would stop a conscious person from doing what's necessary to climb. They don't feel guilt. They don't experience cognitive dissonance. They simply execute. This is why, throughout history, so many atrocities have been committed by people who seemed ordinary. Hannah Arendt called it the banality of evil. But perhaps it's something else. Perhaps it's the natural behavior of beings who lack the inner light that would make cruelty unbearable. Now, the uncomfortable question, what creates these soulless beings? Are they born that way, or are they made? Blavatsky suggested both. Some souls, she said, fail to incarnate fully. The higher principles never activate, but others lose their souls over time, through spiritual neglect, through immersion in materialism, through the slow erosion of consciousness. And modern life is designed to accelerate that erosion. From a moment of birth, the system begins its work. Education doesn't teach critical thinking. It teaches obedience. Sit in rows. Memorize what you're told. Repeat it on command. Don't ask why. Don't challenge the narrative. Conformity is rewarded. Rebellion is punished. Then comes media, a constant flood of noise, distraction, outrage, entertainment. The mind is never allowed to rest, to reflect, to turn inward. It's always pulled outward, reacting to the next stimulus, the next crisis, the next trend. Over time, the inner voice, the quiet presence that observes, that questions, fades. All that remains is reaction. Add to this the pressure to succeed in a system that defines success as accumulation. More money, more status, more followers. The soul is not measured in these terms, but the system insists they are all that matters. And so people chase them year after year, sacrificing depth for appearance, meaning for achievement, until one day they wake up, if they wake up at all, and realize they've become hollow. This is the trap Blavatsky warned of. This is the prison the Gnostics described. A world designed to keep consciousness dormant, to keep people trapped in the lower principles, operating as biological machines, never realizing they were meant to be something more. But here's the crucial point. It doesn't have to be this way. The loss of the soul is not inevitable. Awakening is possible, but it requires something most people are unwilling to give: effort. George Gurdjieff, a mystic and teacher who studied similar principles, put it bluntly: man is asleep, and he will remain asleep unless he chooses, consciously, to wake up. Gurdjieff taught a practice he called self-remembering. It's simple but difficult. At random moments throughout the day, stop. Observe yourself. Not your thoughts, yourself having the thoughts. Not your emotions, yourself experiencing the emotions. Become the witness. Most people go their entire lives without ever doing this. They are identified with every thought, every feeling, every reaction. They are the puppet, not the one holding the strings. But the moment someone steps back and observes, something shifts. A gap opens between stimulus and response. And in that gap, consciousness awakens. This is the first step. The second is breaking patterns. If someone follows the same routines every day, thinks the same thoughts, consumes the same content, they remain mechanical. Change disrupts the program. Do something unexpected. Question a belief held since childhood. Sit in silence instead of reaching for the phone. The soul grows through friction, through challenge, through the choice to be present instead of automatic. And the more this is practiced, the stronger the connection to the higher self becomes. But it's not easy. The system resists. Society punishes those who wake up. Friends and family may mock, dismiss, or distance themselves. The awake are uncomfortable to be around because they reflect back what others refuse to see, that most of what passes for life is sleepwalking. But the alternative is worse. The alternative is to drift, to fade, to become one of the shells Blavatsky described, to live a life without ever truly being alive. So the question is not whether soulless beings walk among us. The evidence, from ancient texts to modern observation, suggests they do. The real question is, which side of the line are you on? Are you awake, or are you programmed? Are you conscious, or are you performing consciousness? The answer is found not in belief, but in practice. Observe, question, break the patterns, cultivate the inner light, and refuse, at all costs, to let the system put you back to sleep. The soul is not a guarantee. It's a practice, and the practice begins now.